Hello from outside the MKN Stadium on what's been a great night for Hull City. Deserved 2-0 winners over Wrexham to end that two-game losing run here and move back into the top six with just a fourth clean sheet of the season. Though obviously it's Hull City, so it wouldn't be quite that straightforward, would it? They did have Ivor Pandur to thank for a second half penalty save to deny Ivor Pandur from the penalty spot at 1-0. And then off the bench came Oli McBurnie. 4 minutes it took him to get back on the score sheet and put City 2-0 up. Arguably, I would say, probably the most complete performance of the season so far. Admittedly, Wrexham, who were a point behind the Tigers at kick-off and were 9 games unbeaten, albeit quite a few draws. I think the most draws of any team in the EFL. 9 of 19 before tonight, I think, were draws. But City were just very, very good. That said, Ivor Pandur did miss an absolute sitter in the first half at 1-0. City had scored early on. Carl Joseph prodding in after Matt Crooks' shot was parried by the goalkeeper. But more, cross came in inexplicably. I think Louis Coyle and Matt Crooks, a bit of lack of communication. Coyle played it straight to Moore, who 7 yards out front of goal, managed to drag it wide. And I think probably for the first time in as I can't remember how long, City weren't punished for a mistake. It feels like over the last, pretty much all season really, every time they've made an error, they've been punished with a goal. Well, that didn't happen. And then obviously then, they had so many chances, 19 attempts at goal tonight, I think City had. They were so much the better team, it was ridiculous. But you always felt, even at 1-0, that they were one error away from giving Wrexham a freebie back into the game, and they were terrible. Arguably the worst team I've seen here all season, which I'm surprised at myself for saying, if I'm honest, because they've done really well coming up from League One. Many people, I don't know why, expected them to walk the league, and Parkinson was under a bit of pressure early on, but the jump from League One to Championship is massive. They're having a fine season, let's be honest. So I was surprised at how poor they were, but credit to Hull City because they were very good. But that said, Crooks gives away a daft penalty at 1-0, and you're thinking, pretty much everybody in the ground's thinking this is going to be 1 each, and again they've contributed to their own downfall. But credit to Ivor Pandur, who made a fantastic save, and then obviously, as it happens, McBurnie comes off the bench, has a tame header by his standards, and then he scores the goal, which was just, again, classic McBurnie, just brilliant. The ball goes up to him on the halfway line, he wrestles the centre half, holds it up, lays it off to, I think, Darko JB, and I'll come on to him in just a minute. JB then rolls it out to Liam Miller, who came on with McBurnie just after the hour. Slides it then to Giles, and Giles does what Giles does best. He just looks up, bends it round the corner, and you know that you could almost see the goal coming before it actually happened. McBurnie comes from nowhere, gets across his man, and he knows all he's got, because of the way the ball's come into the box. He knows where the goalkeeper is. He knows all he's got to do is direct the ball into the far corner, and it'll be a goal. And that's exactly what he does. Tremendous centre forward play from McBurnie. To turn it into the net, and that was, as I say, 4 minutes after coming on. And obviously once they got the second goal, it was, the game was done and dusted then. And it's just the lift that McBurnie gives the whole stadium, the whole ground. The ground are chanting on his name before when he's warming up. Then he comes on and they're roaring. And for Liam Miller as well, and then he scores the goal. It was just brilliant, and they saw the game out really, really comfortably. 5 minutes of added time, they could have added to their total. Akintola saw another well worked goal. A well worked move saved by the goalkeeper. Liam Miller hit the crossbar. There were 1 or 2 other moments. It was once the second goal went in, it was actually remarkably calm, bar a couple of moments. But you never felt, once they got that second, you felt that the game was done and dusted. And as I say, I think in both halves they were much the better team, and they were really pleased for Carl Joseph to get his goal, often maligned for his lack of goals. And there was a moment in the second half where Giles has put an absolute worldie of a ball across the box, and you're thinking, if that was McBurnie scores. But Joseph didn't have that. It just lacked that kind of killer instinct. But credit to him for his goal, because it was, it was a scrambled finish, but a finish nonetheless. And it was so important tonight to get that first goal. Given, I think, Lee, you just mentioned it, response to Friday night. All the eyes were on, particularly with it being the main game on telly tonight, with what happened on Friday and how bad they were in that first half. Then we get the news about Joe Gelhardt being out for 4, 5, 6 weeks, however long it's going to be with this calf injury. All eyes are on City tonight. Can they respond? Wrexham, difficult to beat, don't lose too many games, 9 unbeaten. What have City got? Another home game. Can they respond? And they, from the kickoff, they were at it. They were creating chances. They were on the front foot, and they got the crowd behind them. But getting that first, had Wrexham got the first goal, then it's a very, very difficult game. The atmosphere is very difficult. You don't know how it then plays out. But getting that first goal, going in at half-time with that clean sheet intact, a couple of hairy moments at the start of the second half, but they got through that. They obviously had the penalty. You needed the goalkeeper to pull out a good save. He did that. And then obviously McBurnie comes off and does what he does. And that's so important, because the big worry when he got injured at Birmingham was, well, who's going to score the goals? Well, Gelhardt's done that with 8 goals in 10 games. He's now injured and set for a spell on the sidelines. McBurnie's back, 4 minutes off and run. McBurnie's not scored for 4 or 5 games. Will he reach the levels we saw earlier in the season? That conversation, if it was ever going to become a thing, is nipped in the bud. He's straight back. He's got a goal immediately, and his confidence, will be soaring. So delighted for those. I thought defensively, a couple of rocky moments early on with Shemi Ajayi, but he grew into the game, was very, very good tonight, I thought. 2 players I want to pick out. Before I do that, Bellumi was amazing on that right-hand side. His run created the first goal. There was a couple of other runs and passes. He was just... I guess he set the tone within the first minute or so when I think Ndala put a ball over and he went for the overhead kick. It came out to Coyle, who shot over, and you're kind of thinking, that's Bellumi. He was at it, and they couldn't deal with him all night. And I've said this before, that the thing about Bellumi is it's not just what he does going forward. Bellumi has such an impact on City going the other way, because at times this season, City, without Bellumi, City have been really open down their sides. But Bellumi being there, it keeps the opposition defenders honest. It means they can't push too far on, because if they leave Bellumi in acres of space, they've got a problem. So him being back in the team is so important going both ways. But he was exceptional tonight. He really was. So that was great. I thought Regan Slater was his best performance for some time. Who likened him to Prime Makaleli? I just saw a comment about that. I'm just scrolling back. Bear with me a second while I try and find out who said that, because I like that. But yeah, Regan. I tell you, Slater, Prime Makaleli. Yeah, Regan was very good. Breaking up play, doing the stuff that we've wanted to see from a City midfielder for a while. He could have scored first half, had a rasping drive, turned away by the goalkeeper. But a special mention tonight for Joel Ndala and Darko JB, because those 2 players have had mixed spells so far. They're both only young, both finding their feet, so that's to be expected. But both were taken off at half-time at Stoke, which is a pretty embarrassing thing for any player to be hauled off at half-time. But I thought Joel Ndala was exceptional tonight out wide. Right from the kick-off, as I touched on there, that overhead kick for Bellumi, he was direct. He was brilliant at Wrexham in the cup game back in August, and he picked up there where he left off. And I thought he was a real menace all night. He was direct. He was getting to the byline. He pulled back a couple of lovely crosses. And JB in the centre of midfield, he broke up play. He was athletic. He was physical. He had a massive hand in the second goal. He just kept it simple. He took a couple of touches from McBurnie's ball, and he played a simple ball out to Liam Miller. Nothing special, but really effective. So, for 2 players that have had, and a bit of criticism, let's be honest, coming their way after that Stoke game and how ineffective they were. But that was a big performance from them 2 tonight, and they need to keep that going, because Millwall on Saturday, obviously they're third. That's going to be a testing encounter down at the Den on Saturday, but one to look forward to. But they're both really bright talents, Ndala and JB, and City need them to perform. And I thought, for the first time in a while tonight, they got their press. The way they pressed, the way they won the ball back, the transition, as they call it now, was so strong, and they just kept recycling possession. Yeah, there was a period in the first half where they kept giving the ball away, and that that is a really inherently frustrating part of their game. Is they work so hard to win the ball back, but then just give it away carelessly again, and that encourages teams onto them. And we've seen that in previous weeks where they've given the ball away in really bad areas, and then the other team have scored from it. Well, tonight that didn't happen, and they kept their energy levels, the tenacity in them, particularly in the middle of the park, in forcing Wrexham into making so many errors. That's the most errors I've seen from an away team here for quite a while. But City forced those errors because they were putting them under pressure. They were working in pairs, working in threes, winning the ball back, and they were just very good tonight. That was a really, really good. It's the sort of performance that you don't take for granted. But for teams that are successful, teams that get in the top six, it's the sort of kind of regulation performance we didn't see enough of in the season where City missed out on the playoffs. There were too many games where they were dominant like that, but they didn't go on and win the game. They'd be dominant at 1-0 and then concede and draw 1-1. And that was the Achilles heel of why that Liam Rossini team failed to get in the top six. That performance tonight was the sort of performance that, in midweek in the Championship, difficult pitch, difficult conditions, middle of the season, you go out and find a way to win the game. You produce a workman-like, business-like, efficient performance. And I would say that was exactly what that performance was. And it's moved them back into the top six. Incredible, really, to be, after 20 games, to be sixth in the table on merit. It's not like other teams have got 15 games in hand. City are there on merit now. And that is, I guess that's what heightens the frustration of games that have gone in the recent past. Derby, Watford, QPR, obviously, games like that where they've thrown away points, but they're still in. We've been saying it for ages. They're in a fantastic position. That result tonight, coupled with results elsewhere over the last couple of days, has got them back into the top six. And I think it's going to be one of those seasons where you win a couple, you're in it. You lose a couple, you're out of it, and it's going to be. It's going to be a rat race basically right through until the end of the season. There's probably 8, 10, 12 teams that are going to be in and around it. City are going to be one of those. They just, as we've said a million times before, they need to keep everybody fit. Miller back, Bellumi back, McBurnie back is massive. If they can get Lundstrom back in the next 10 days, 2 weeks, Joff after Christmas, the worry, and obviously Matars are a bit further back than that, and Casey Palmer, but the only worry is losing players. They just keep losing their influential players. You just pray that they have a bit of good fortune over the next month or so, and no more injuries, and can get Lundstrom and Joff back, because they're, as we've said before, on their day they're a match for anybody, and they're a real threat, and that is based on that is proven by the fact that they're sixth in the table at this point of the season, and it's really tight. If they could go to Millwall and win on Saturday, then they move within a point of Millwall, who are third, and have been amazing this season under Alex Neil. So, look, great response to Friday night. Couldn't have gone any better. Two goals, McBurnie back, scoring goals, clean sheet, Pandur save, penalty save, so a bit of jeopardy there. But all in all, a really, really good. Good home win over a side that are in great foot. Let's be honest, 9 games unbeaten. They beat Coventry fairly recently as well, Wrexham. So, and you look at their bench and you see Windass on there, you see Lewis O'Brien, who could have come here in the summer. They've got some good players. That's a good squad. And City have as poor as Wrexham were tonight, City were very good, so give them credit. Right, I'm going to whiz through some questions because I've got to get to Heathrow Airport now, because I'm flying to Utrecht to watch Forest tomorrow. So I've got a hefty journey down to the airport to come. Mark, our press was excellent tonight. We made them look very poor. Absolutely agreed. Alan, we looked dangerous on both wings. Couldn't agree more. Tim, great game for midfield. Yep, absolutely agree with that. Steve, we pressed Wrexham like Borough pressed us. Lesson learned. Absolutely. And for me, that's the key thing. You learn more in defeat than you do in victory often. That's what managers will say. And if you get pumped by Borough and you take your medicine, you take it on the chin, but you go and learn from it and you make sure that doesn't happen again, then I wouldn't say it's been worth it. But actually, sometimes a punch on the nose in that respect isn't necessarily a bad thing. Nobody wants it. You'd rather it didn't happen, obviously. But if it is going to happen, and it can happen in this league, we see it all the time. Well, what have you learned from it, lads? What lessons have you learned? What mistakes did you make that you're not going to make again? And if they go and win 4 or 5 games in the next 7, you know, and they've taken the learnings from that Middlesbrough game, then actually maybe it wasn't such a bad thing, as daft as that sounds. But, you know, I think you know what I mean. McBurnie could have had 5 of those crosses. Yeah, absolutely. Stephen Darla's best game. Don't disagree with that. I thought he was exceptional. Harry Giles doesn't come alive till he's got Miller in front of him. I just think he feels more confident. I feel he knows his game. He feels a bit more at ease in terms of going beyond. But yeah, there was let's be honest, Giles put an absolute worldie of a ball in before Miller even got on the pitch, and Joseph probably should have scored. That was an incredible ball in. Vicky, I agree with Steve, and Darla looked good for the first time. I think first time is a bit harsh, but he's a young player still getting to grips. Don't forget, this is his first experience of Championship football, and he's in and out of the team. He's only a teenager. He's going to make mistakes. Things are going to go well. Things aren't going to go well. He's learning on the job in front of 20,000 people. So he's had his moments, and he's had moments where he'll learn from. But I thought he was very good tonight. Johnny, Mo Bloomy is everything Abu Kamara was not. I like Abu, but I do think with Abu, and we said this before, that, you know, he showed promise, but he would always cut back inside or go back rather than, like we saw when he was at Pompey, where he'd take his man on and get to the byline. Bloomies forward. The first thought in Bloomy's head is, the goal's there, let me go there. I don't want to go back to my own goal. That's of no use. I want to go forward. And defenders hate that. It's just a pleasure to watch. I thought he was brilliant tonight, and great. David, midfield right the wrongs from Friday, stepped up, they did absolutely. Tom Tree, Matt Crooks had a great game. Micah, great win, great to see our Scottish Viking back. Bad news about Gowhart, but hopefully we can get an attacking midfielder in January. Yep, I would echo those thoughts, and that is what is the plan. Vicky, Bloomy was class, as was Miller. Can't wait to see him. How refreshing was it, albeit for a few minutes, to see Miller and Bloomy on the same pitch playing at the same time? I mean, we've been robbed of that for the last year, so, you know, that is the dream ticket. You want to see Bloomy, Miller, McBurnie and Gowhart all on the same pitch at the same time. Well, we've been robbed of that for a little while Gowhart is obviously out injured, but hopefully it won't be too long. Pray that Miller, Bloomy and McBurnie can stay fit over the Christmas period, because if they do, City have got one hell of a chance, haven't they? You know as well as I do about that. Harry, I'd rather have João Pedro than Kiefer Moore. He's useless. I'm sure he is. He's still scored 10 goals this season. Yeah, Adam, you make a good point about the penalties. I mean, how we didn't get a penalty. I mean, the first one could have been a penalty when James McLean kicked it into his own arm, which was outstretched. That may be harsh. The second one from Crooks, I mean, he's handled it with at least one arm. How that's not a penalty, I've got no idea. But the referee decided it wasn't, and it wasn't too costly. David, Stonewall handball missed. Yeah, don't disagree. Steve, Slater had a great game. Hard to pick a player that didn't play well. Although Cole passing to Moore in our box could have changed things. Yeah, absolutely. But as I said at the top, tonight was one of those nights where they didn't get punished for that mistake, thankfully, because that would have changed everything. Bloomy, great player, but gave away a few stray balls early doors, and Darla too weak, had no impact. I'm not sure about that. To be fair, Stephen, Bloomy was class. McBurnie lifts the whole team. Our press is much improved. Absolutely. Aaron said hello to me. Sorry, mate. Sometimes I'm in a world of my own. So I do apologise if it certainly wasn't intentional, but I do apologise for that. Next time, maybe like shout at me or something, or come and dance in front of me, because I drift off into my own world sometimes. So I apologise for not seeing you tonight. If we can keep Miller, Bloomy and Oli on the pitch, we can beat anyone. Don't disagree. Agree with that. And we've seen it all season. The quality of the teams they've beaten, and I think the Ipswich game is different. If Miller, Bloomy, McBurnie are all on the pitch at the same time, that's a very different game entirely. Attilia, Scotland can beat Brazil in the summer with McBurnie. He's got to go if he's fit, he has to go to the World Cup. Paul would love Sergei to have a full strength squad to pick from. We will lose. Will we lose any in January? I don't think. Difficult to say at this stage. Long way to go yet. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was interest coming back in Charlie Hughes. Is there going to be interest in Pandur now he's in and around the Croatian squad? Does Gowhart's injury change? I mean, Gowhart wants to stay. You know, Leeds at this stage have got no appetite to record him and sell him, but you never know. And the transfer window is a strange, brutal mistress. If let's say a Wolverhampton Wanderers come in with £10 million for Gowart, which and we all know that teams at the bottom of the Premier League and some at the top of the Championship panic in January, and they'll be, all the teams will be looking at the top of the Championship and who scored the goals, and they'll look and think, can we get that? Can we get him in? Get him in? Wolves are preparing for the Championship. Wolves are going down, aren't they? Do they look at Gowart and think, year left on his contract, come the summer at Leeds, he's now scoring goals. He's at a good age. Can we get him on the cheap now? So obviously there's no appetite from City. City want him to stay, clearly. Gowart wants to stay, but the January window is dangerous in many ways. So let's wait and see. But they're going to have to. They are going to have to ship one or two out to get one or two in. So let's talk about that further down the line. Lee, do you think Palmer will play for City again? Or I'd like to see him again. I like Casey, but it's difficult to see how he gets back in this team. Although if people keep dropping out with injuries, you never know. But he's got to get himself fully fit first, and if he's going to get a move, he's got to also be fully fit. So we'll have to. But I do like Casey. He's a good lad. Ian, Slater carrying a knock. I don't think it's anything serious, but we'll get that confirmed when we speak to Sergei again. Paul, Wrexham, the worst I've seen this season. Absolutely, but give credit to City for that. Adam, don't think we'll see Palmer back the way that team is performing. Panda doesn't look confident. I think Panda's really up and down. Some of his some of his kicking's really up and down. There's a moment in the first half where he, under no pressure, he goes and kicks it straight out to their midfielder. Got away with it that time, but we saw against Preston earlier in the season where he kicks it straight out, almost identical, and they score from it. So he is up and down, but he does make some massive saves again, and that was proven tonight. Paul, how much does a pre-season? Do you mean how much difference does a pre-season make? Come back to me on that if you can. Thanks, Alice. That's very kind. Ollie, Slater was class man of the match. He was brilliant tonight. Absolutely brilliant for the first minute. Michael Vaughan. Hopefully, is it the England former England captain? Hugh strolled it tonight. Charlie was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But I thought Shemi Ajayi was as well. David, let Palmer go and get a creative midfielder. They'll be looking at it. Norman, Mo was superb first half. He will give defenders a nightmare when he's fully up to speed. The ball just sticks to him. Absolutely, it does. He's a pleasure to watch. I love watching him. And he makes things happen. Thanks for all your comments tonight. James needs some centre-back cover, especially with Ajayi going to AFCON. Well, they've got Akin from Awo. Obviously, John Egan's around. Young Cathal McCarthy as well. So I think they'll hope, and Lundstrom can play there if needed. Obviously, he's out injured at the minute. But I think they'll hope to try and muddle through. If Nigeria get to the final, Ajayi's going to be, the final's the 18th of January, I think. So Ajayi would be out until that, well, away till then, and then probably not back. I think West Brom away is if I remember rightly, I think the final's on Sunday the 18th of January. We play at West Brom on the Tuesday after that, so the 20th. So I would be surprised if they won it, that he would be back, because they'd obviously have all the celebrations and stuff, but he would be back for the Saturday game thereafter, I think. But obviously it depends on how far Nigeria get. Norman, JB, best game, absolutely. We've covered off AFCON. Steve, great having two wingers that are intent on taking on their man and running to goal. It makes such a difference. The balance of the team was great. Christian, so happy to see Slater and Crooks deeper players. It would work so much better. Yeah, about Balumi, I asked if he was all right. I was told the gaffer said he was fine, just a bit tired, naturally, after his first start since Southampton. Paul, if Miller starts in place of Ndala and McBurnie starts for Joseph, different scoreline. Ifs and buts, but credit to Carl Joseph, he got the goal. And it was an important goal at that. Adam, thanks very much. Yes, Alistair, maybe, sorry, the fixtures... Lee, Preston away on the 20th of January. I don't know what I'm thinking of West Brom for some reason, but yeah, Preston away on the 20th. If Ajayi wins the AFCON, he won't be back for that, because they'll obviously have the celebrations probably in Lagos, I would think, on the Monday or the Tuesday of that week. But that's, we're talking 6 weeks away, and Nigeria have obviously just gone out the World Cup qualifiers, so a lot can change before them. And Paul, sorry, about the injuries. Players that haven't had that is a thing. When play, it often becomes a throwaway comment that managers, when they talk about the importance of pre-season, and it kind of just gets forgotten. But it is true that if players don't have a full pre-season, where everything is structured and they play games and everything is, all their minutes and their loads are all, everything is planned. They don't have that, then it's really hard to them. You know, you go straight into the intensity of Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday in the Championship. You are picking up niggles, and we've seen that with, absolutely, we saw that with Ennis Destan, we saw that with obviously Joff, we've now seen it with Joff, we've seen it with Oli Mack, we've seen it with John Lundstrom, although he had he did have a pre-season with Trabzonspor, I think. So, but it's just a consequence. And it's just what you've got to deal with. But I think, let's be honest, they're doing a fantastic, with all the injuries and all the, you know, you take 4, 5, 6 key players out of any team in any league, they're going to feel it. And to be 6th after 20 games with having not been able to name what we would class as their strongest team at any point, you've got to give them, the manager, the staff and the players, so much credit. Yes, I know there have been games where we've got frustrated with them. Yes, we know they've dropped points at times, but they're doing a phenomenal job with the resources available. So many key players out. You know, you're now taking out 10 goals, a 10-goal striker in Gauhart, and you're putting in, you know, you're bringing back McBurnie, who's not played a game for nine games, and he gets a goal. So look, it's easy to criticise, but let's give them a huge amount of credit for being in the position they're in. And they might lose at Millwall, but they might win the following game against West Brom. It's going to be up and down all season, and it's the team that can find that little bit of consistency to get in the playoffs. You know, go 3 or 4 games unbeaten, win a couple of those. You know, whoever is the most consistent will be in that top 6, and City are going to be, if it carries on like this, in with a shout. And you know, that's more than any of us ever expected at the start of the season. So let's take stock. 20 games in, they're 6th in the table. They've won 6 home games already, which is now one more than they achieved in the whole of last season. They're well on the way to scoring more goals than they did last season. Yes, they've got defensive issues. Yes, they need to keep tight, but they've kept a clean sheet tonight. Let's hope they can go, you know, and get a couple more over Christmas, and you know, set themselves up for the new year. Right, my waffle is done for tonight. We'll be speaking to Sergei on Friday afternoon. I will be at the Den on Friday after my whistle-stop tour of Amsterdam and Utrecht to hopefully watch an away victory in the Europa League, but fingers crossed. I'll be probably knackered because I'm not going to get to Heathrow probably till 3:30 in the morning, and then I've got pretty much a flight straight out to Amsterdam. So that's me for the next 24 hours. But this was an absolute pleasure to watch tonight. Great to see City back to winning ways. Really enjoyable performance. The wonderful moment for Oli Max getting that goal and seeing the response to that. 3 points for City at home to Wrexham. 6 home wins, back to winning ways, back in the top 6. McBurnie back on the score sheet. Great news for Hull City. And we'll see you at the Den on Saturday afternoon. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for all your comments, as always. And we'll see you down in Bermondsey. Up the Tigers.